This is the first podcast that I've agreed to do in almost a year, I think. Christianity is a brand. They've got a mission. There's the most influential origin story of all time. Think about the weirdest pictures you have of yourself from high school. How many of those you may or may not still have available on the internet for people to see? I had some weird shit up there. If people couldn't pick up by now, I'm definitely an early adopter of things. YouTube in 2016, when no one was really, like, TikTok didn't exist back then, right? So ChatGPT comes out, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hop on this. I had a copywriter who was doing a great job, but the more I played around with ChatGPT, I was like, I don't really need the copywriter. I can train this AI to sound like me, to write like me, to repurpose old things I've written in like a different way.
This is Arlin Moore. He's on a mission to raise the collective consciousness and make the world a better place. He's the founder of Tribe Accelerator, helping you build a tribe of high-value men and women. He's also the founder of Maxi, a goal-setting, productivity, and mental reprogramming tool with AI-powered voice assistant to help you level up in every aspect of your life. This episode is live from Manhattan, showing you exactly how you can master your own vision, craft an effective plan, reprogram your mind, and turn your thoughts into a reality. What's up, people? Before we get into this video, please make sure to subscribe, like, and comment down below so we can get bigger and better guests for you every single week. Let's get straight into the video right now. Let's kick off. I want to start with a quote from yourself. So, you're wealthier than you think. If you're healthy enough to enjoy a workout, you're wealthy. If you have anyone that you can call family, you're wealthy. If you have anything in your life that you wake up daily and are excited about, you're wealthy. Wealth isn't just about money. What made you have that realization?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Darren.
My pleasure, man.
It's I will say before I answer, this is the first podcast that I've agreed to do in almost a year, I think.
Oh, awesome.
I did like a big podcast run a while ago, but so much has changed since I did that. So I'm very excited to dive into this. And yeah, to start with that quote, I think there's another quote that it reminds me of, which is that people often are confused about what they want because they don't realize that they already have it. And that goes for, whether you're going through something extremely traumatic, or whether you're, in a good place, but you just feel like you want to get to the next place. Mm. And I think I found myself in both of those situations. I've been sitting in some like very dark rock bottom places. And I've also been, in places more so, recently where things are really actually pretty good, but I find myself trying to imagine what the next thing would be. And I just have to like zen myself out and just, I'll say quotes like that or tweet quotes like that more so just to remind myself that like, hey, this is probably pretty good where you're at. And anything that you think you want, is probably, you might actually desire it, but what you have right now is probably more linked to what you truly actually want, for some sort of longer term reasoning.
How do you appreciate those times when you're in them, though?
The dark times.
The good times. So let's say, you've came from LA, you're in New York now, and I'm the same, right? I flew from Bali, we got here, we're a bit tired, a bit jet lagged, and it's easy to kind of not complain, but to take it for granted that we're here in like one of the best cities in the world, right? And it's like a great experience. But to truly appreciate it in the moment is difficult, right?
Yeah. I mean, meditation's key for that. Like you were very generous to give me a gift this morning, to even think to give me a gift, which was very nice. And I'll use that for, waking up every day and first thing just writing down what I'm grateful for. It's the most basic personal development principles that I think what's interesting is like as I've gotten older, I've really realized that when I was first starting my business online and starting to post content, I was doing these practices every day religiously. And that was when I experienced the most growth, waking up, meditation on the dot, right? Like cold shower, the gratitude journaling, the writing down the 4 agreements, writing like a letter to God or higher power or something, like devoting yourself as a vessel, right? For whatever God or higher power wants you to do. And I would do that kind of thing every day. And then that takes you somewhere, and you get successful. But then you're like, well, I woke up in the Equinox Hotel. I'm
Fuck journaling.
45. Yeah, why am I gonna journal? Like, I'm gonna go get a chocolate croissant.
It's so true, though.
And
right?
I'm gonna get a massage.
Yeah.
Like that's nice.
It's usually the things that got you to this point are usually things you forget about, right? It's kind of like when you look at like a Jeff Bezos and you look at his like 4-hour morning routine. It's like his actual routine to grow Amazon was not that. He'd wake up and smash a line of code or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of like adjust those different variables, but it's often the basics that are most effective. It's like in the gym, right?
Yeah.
It's the basics that work.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, now I would say things are getting a little. I found some nuanced things to my morning routine, and for the people who are listening, they might not understand what's happening right now, but I do have some props with me that are quite important because nowadays when I wake up, usually the first thing I do is I put on my scarf and I listen to Olivia Rodrigo.
Why is that?
Well, because she's just the best.
Okay.
She's the best. I love her.
And tell me more context about this.
She's the best. That's it. She's my favorite artist. She understands me. She speaks to me. She feels me. And she makes me feel good.
So, and what do you use this for? Like
I wake up.
Okay.
I listen to Olivia, and I feel good.
And then that starts like your day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Puts me in a good mood. Okay, I'll take this off now.
You can leave it on.
That may or may not come out again. I don't know what happened there. That's a different person on the podcast, actually.
I like the fact that you have like different personas that you can show up on.
Yeah.
And that brings back to film as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like how you want to position yourself in many ways. But staying back onto that in a moment, right? So you've been kind of at this for many years and a lot more than people, even like me, that come into the space, right? Because you've been kind of like, you had a background in film, then you went into YouTube and you were kind of always crafting out that mission. What were you kind of learning about yourself and what has kind of changed, I would say, about yourself that you've realized? Because you were once doing a lot of the meditation and then might have slowed it down and then restarted it. But I think like creating is often a great barometer of like where you're kind of at, right? Because you can see yourself evolve over time.
That's actually big too, is when I first started my business, I was creating more than I really ever have. And I started on YouTube for people that are newer to my brand. I started on YouTube in 2016.
So early.
Yeah. And I was in Boston too. Nobody was doing it. There was like a girl at my school who was like one of the first ever college vloggers, which sounds weird to say. Yeah. I feel like a dinosaur in terms of like influencer, like I was like at college with GLB, Gretchen Loves Beauty, and she was like, she's been on YouTube for like 12 years, and she was like the first and then I started doing it, and I was like one of the first guy college vloggers. Like I would tell people who understand social media, I was like Casey Neistat, but in college. Now, of course, you don't have to say that. You just say, you're a college vlogger, and there's like 20 college vloggers per university now, at least in the States. But I would back then, I would just go to class. I would record my whole day, and then around 10 p.m. I would start editing, and I would edit from like 10 p.m. to like 4 a.m. and just creating, and I'd do that every day. Unless I went to a party, then I would go to the party like 10 to maybe 1 a.m. Then I would start editing from 1 a.m. to like 6 a.m., So like that like hunger, and I had no money, right? So I was just so hungry. And then, a few years pass, start figuring out how to make money, monetize the audience, build businesses, investments on the side. And then I started learning how to build a team. And this was really in the last year. And probably the biggest update was that, the past 2-3 years, I was really building out my team. And I had like 18 people 18? At one point. Yeah.
Fuck.
Between videographer, six or seven different content assistants, like short form editors and podcast editors and all that, salespeople, but every position in a standard company, right? But what I found was, okay, I've got my videographer, I've got my YouTube editor, I've got my shorts editors. What am I doing? Like I used to do all this myself. And I realized for quite a while, like I wasn't, and I found myself, my YouTube editor specifically because my vlogs were the things that were like the most creative. And that was like, my parents are artists. That was like my art, was like the YouTube vlogs. And I found like, wait a second, I'm outsourcing. It's like, would Da Vinci be like, hey, I'm going to hire this assistant to paint the Mona Lisa for me? Like, no, that's not how it works. And I've always viewed my YouTube videos like art, and I got away from that. And we could go into the story. I think it's a pretty good story of like why I actually fired everybody on my team. I have like a couple contractors that help me with like things here and there, but I have no established team right now. If anything, I'm even just testing the contractors to see if I even need them right now. But now I'm creating every day, and I'm getting back to that level that I was once at, where I'm like Da Vinci painting every day, like
that's sick, man.
Yeah. And the one thing that's actually super interesting was the one thing I could never outsource was my Instagram stories. Even when I had 15, 16, 17 people working for me, I would always still do my own Instagram stories. And like today, that's like, right, like as of right now, aside from this podcast and like a couple other things I'm experimenting with, my Instagram stories is like my entire business. It's crazy. Like I just do Instagram stories.
Why is that? Like, and how did that come to be? All right, people, we're just going to take one short little break for a little update about Podcast University. So if you enjoy podcasts like this and you want to start your own podcast, head down to the links down below to Podcast University. This is a learning platform that I've built to help people like you build, launch, and scale your own podcast. I wasted many years doing this, making it all up as I go. So I put everything together in a very seamless and easy to follow course for you guys to follow and just learn exactly how to do it. So if you want to bypass a lot of the mess with your podcast, check out the links down below to Podcast University, and it will show you exactly how to launch and scale your own podcast.
Because I'm just can you swear on this?
Of course you can.
Because I'm just a dumbass little travel hoe.
So it's telling the story.
No, I don't know what you're talking. I'm just, I basically wake up, get a good sweat in, and, look sexy. And after I've started to look sexy and I'm like listening and glowing like Olivia, I just post on Instagram, on my Instagram story, and I feel good. And for some reason, money just shows up in my bank account.
How did that come to be? I was like, talk me through that story, like that process.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll walk you through the whole okay. So
because you've been like focused on Instagram for many years, even from like there's like a dating side of Instagram and there's a business side of Instagram.
Yeah. This is good. So yeah, I would say I'm like one of the foremost experts on Instagram and specifically Instagram stories. I just don't know that there's no way anyone's ever studied it more than me, unless you're like at Instagram. No, there's no way anyone studied Instagram to the length that I have. So yeah, my main platform used to be YouTube. Instagram was always like the second, but Instagram was never like basically what I used to do with Instagram as a business tool is in my YouTube videos, my first company was a merch company, I like to call it a clothing brand, but I liked to call it a clothing brand, but it was really just a merch company, a YouTube merch. But I built up a really cool brand that people still today ask me about. I didn't just like slap some words on a t-shirt. Like I really built a brand, and I was obsessed with branding, and I studied how the best brands were made, and I baked in all of these like psychological, like the same attraction triggers that make Apple and Amazon companies that stick in your mind and you're using an iPhone 10 years later is what I used to bake into this clothing brand.
How?
Well, there's really 10 to 12 like elements that I try to bake into every brand that I focus on building. One is you need a strong mission. That's like the core. Apple is like, we're here to create products for creative people, and we want to inspire people to create. That's basically Apple's mission. Google's mission is to, it's somewhere along the lines of like, we want to create, something that, I don't know, Google says that's free. It's something about search. I don't know.
Yeah.
We want to make information. Oh, we want to organize the world's information. That's Google. So you need a mission. My mission from the start was something along the lines of like, I would like to create content to educate, enlighten, and inspire people to become better versions of themselves and make the world a better place. And I would read that every morning. That was part of my like routine from 2016 to like 2018 probably. And so you need a mission, you need a story, an origin story. That's the second element. Everyone knows Apple's origin story, right? Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, garage, computers, origin story, right? Every powerful brand has an origin story, and you'll tell the biggest fans of that product or that brand will tell that story. They'll evangelize it. What's the strongest brand ever created?
I would have said Apple.
Christianity. Think about it. Christianity is it's a brand, right? I can break that down more, but they've got a mission, and there's the most influential origin story of all time in the Bible, right? And Jesus. So they've got, and it's funny looking at religion as like a marketer. You're like, oh, well, they're doing some good stuff here.
100%.
So you've got the mission or the creed. You've got the origin story. The next is you have symbols, right? You could immediately like, okay, apple, the apple, right? Which ironically, just because we brought up Christianity, you've got apple as a forbidden fruit. You take the bite off the apple. Now we're talking about Adam and Eve and the forbidden fruit. Like, don't eat the apple. Careful with the technology. And then, you look at Christianity, you've got the cross, right? It's like the world and brands are very led by symbols, and I'm looking at your Apple logo right now, and you've got the Amazon logo. I was thinking about the Amazon logo the other day. It's really interesting because it's a smiley face, and Bezos has engineered, when people think about Amazon, they think of a smiley face. Like, oh, I like Amazon, like, because when people smile at you, we're programmed to like them more, right? So you've got symbols, then you've got language. Language is, if we're talking about Apple, you've got the iPhone, the iMac, the iPad, the Apple Watch.
Repetition.
You've got Hey Siri, as like everyone's Siri.
Yeah.
It goes off. You've got, if we're looking at just talking about Christianity as well, baptism. Oh, these are all, I guess, like there's different sects of Christianity and religions, of course, but baptism, you've got the priest, the pope, there's all these different words that build up the brand that you only use if you're indoctrinated into that brand, which a brand is like, if we zoom out a little bit more, it's a certain way of living and believing, right? And using products and doing life. You've got, just to kind of speed through this a little more, you've got the identity of the leader is very important. So who is the leader behind the brand, and what's their story, and what do they represent? Steve Jobs, Jesus, Jeff Bezos. In my case, in a personal brand, an influencer's case, in my clothing brand's case, obviously I was the leader of the brand. When people are wearing that hoodie back in the day, they're thinking about me, and they're thinking about my routines, they're thinking about my videos, or
your values.
My values, exactly. The next is polarization. So
us versus them.
Yeah, us versus them. You just throw rocks at the enemies, and you make them look stupid, and you make fun of them, and if you worship other gods, if someone is worshiping other gods, you should fucking stone them to death. How's that for polarization? Like, right? Like, that's in the 10 Commandments, right? I think.
Yeah.
Like the Bible's like a perfect brand. You could learn so much about branding just from studying Christianity.
And I know we're jumping around, but that reminds me a lot about...
That's going to happen a lot. That's how my brain works, yeah.
In 48 Laws of Power, they talk about how to build a cult. And one of them is the us versus them approach.
Yep.
And they bring it back to religion because it's the ultimate form of everyone else is outside the group and we're in the group. And if you look at like anyone, even like your brand, maybe initially, it's if you're outside the club, you're not in.
Yep.
It's what Tate did really well with the Matrix attack. It's what everyone does, right? And it's what I think the difference here is that you've done this for so many years that you have a really good way to position yourself. That's very subtle. I think that's it's very elegant and it looks very effortless, which is also big in 48 Laws of Power as well. And I get that as well from you and Iman as well. I see that kind of like effortlessness, and it's also like a small area of like mystery. But when I observe other people, they're very forced with this.
Yeah.
Even with the brand, right? They're very forced with the brand.
Well, they just don't know a lot of things.
And they haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
Like you've been doing this since 2016, right?
Yeah. I mean, I even think about like, I was thinking about this yesterday. Some of my friends who are more newer in the space, and they, they actually, like, some of my friends have gotten like really successful, like on the surface, more successful than me. But I kind of know, because I've been doing it longer, that there's going to be an inflection point where I'm actually seeing it. They're like running out of ideas. They're like hitting these blockages. And like the thing that propelled them so fast up here is great. Right. But they're like, I'm going like this. Like they went just for the viewer, I guess. They went like this, and I'm going like this, just at a much steadier rate. And at a certain point, they're probably going to go like that,
You're playing the long game. Short-term versus long-term thinking.
But because we're jumping around a lot, but
and this is good, right? It's fine.
So I'm just going to leave there's 6 more of the
it's all good.
The brand building principles on that are all very important. But just to continue, I think we get the point. And there's more than 12. There's tons, but 12 that I really try to focus on daily. But okay, so back to the clothing brand. So what I would do is in my YouTube videos, I would make the video, and then at the end of the video, I would tell people to message me on Instagram for the code to the website, because the website had a lock on it. And you couldn't just buy a hoodie. You had to message me on Instagram. And I was doing this in 2017, 18. And if you wanted to buy my hoodie, you couldn't buy it unless I gave you the code. So that increased conversions like crazy, because everyone's like, I want it and I can't have it. There's this exclusivity element, which is another one of the factors. Scarcity, exclusivity. I would do it in drops. So it would be like urgency. A 3, 4, 5 day drop. And that's one of I really learned about marketing and such from doing that. And so that was but again, the main brand builder for me was YouTube, and Instagram was just this place that people could kind of interact with me, because you can do it in the YouTube comments, but it's way different. Instagram was the closest thing to your real, metaverse identity that felt like you're actually in the room talking to them when you're messaging them on Instagram. So I don't know, there's just a huge personalization with that. And then in 2021, I just started to notice the power of Instagram for social purposes and networking. And I started to realize that by DMing people with the Instagram that I had, that I would get responses from people that otherwise I wouldn't be able to just find in life. How are you going to do? Email them, or there's no other way to just message somebody and be and I talk about this in this course I made, Tribe Accelerator. But even going back further than YouTube, it was what was it? It was you had a written letter, right? You had the internet explosion. I guess you had telephones and such, right? And texting. And then you had the internet, and then you had AIM messaging. I'm sure you used that because we're about the same age, yeah. And
I used Bebo as well.
I never used that. That might have been more out in Ireland.
But, yeah, more degenerate.
Okay, yeah. No, I was AIMing.
Yeah,
and,
I had something similar.
AIM, and then there was Facebook, like talking to people on Facebook, and then Instagram. But Instagram was like, it's slowly getting toward like, oh, you're like really when you're messaging someone on Instagram, it really feels like you're talking to that person, you know? And I don't know what it is. I think it just might be the way that the profile feed like shows all these pictures of you. And so I started experimenting, like changing my pictures around and thinking about, myself much more as a brand. When someone who doesn't know me lands on my Instagram page and they see my profile picture, my bio, they see the highlights, they see the however many pictures are on my grid, what do they think? And how can I manipulate their perception to view me exactly how I want them to view me and to be extremely borderline nervous when I'm messaging them, And so I started to play around with this, and I had about 550 posts from Instagram, and I didn't think about this stuff in college at all. This is like 2020, 2021.
All right, guys, one short little update for Voex. I want to give a short little overview about my own company, my media company called Voex. So if you are a company or you are an enterprise looking to grow your brand and looking to grow your podcast, feel free to reach out to work with us at Voex. What we do is a fully fledged end-to-end management of your podcast. We take care of the strategy, the consulting, we take care of the growth, the management, we take care of all the editing, all the boring stuff so you can focus on creating good podcasts and growing your brand. If you want to grow your podcast and get to new users, if you want to grow your business, generate more revenue and all that good stuff, check out the links down below to Voex. You can follow through to schedule a call with our team, or else you can fill out the application form to see if you're qualified to work with us. Thank you.
And I removed like 540 pictures. So I only had like 10 left. And then I slowly like just redid them based on what I thought would really trigger people to be influenced by me. And my response rate from like messaging important people, influencers, entrepreneurs, or at the time I was single, I was messaging girls. Yeah. And I was getting like, if I messaged, 10 girls that popped up on my explore feed, like models, I would get like 30% response rate, which was crazy. Yeah. And I started testing like the messaging sequence, specifically with dating, with like what's the fastest way to just get a girl on a date that I think's attractive? And I figured out a way with like 3 messages to get a girl I never met in my life to see, like, gets my DM, sees my Instagram, and then agrees to go on a date. And that's it.
What was it?
It was I hesitate to like tell too many people this
At a high level.
Yeah, because actually I don't care now. I'm in a relationship, you'll have to figure out some other stuff. But basically what it was is I would just say, hey, that was the first message, because guys are stupid. Like they think like if they're like, they might have some pickup line, and then you click on their Instagram and they look like a fucking weirdo. Yeah. Like they've got high school pictures, like doing, like, you'd be surprised. I mean, you think about the kind of pictures that you have of you, everyone listening, think about the weirdest pictures you have of yourself from high school, and how many of those you may or may not still have available on the internet for people to see that you posted when you were like 10. I had some weird shit up there. And so many of the guys that I'm working with like had pictures that maybe they only had like, because not a lot of guys take social media seriously. They have like 15 pics. You scroll down to the bottom and you see like 14-year-old you like licking your friend's nipple. Like
that was shit that I had on that I thankfully got rid of when I was younger.
Yeah. And like, weird, or like even pictures of not that weird, but like you and your like high school girlfriend.
Yeah.
And it's like the 7th picture down. And you expected to DM some model who's got 100,000 followers, and she looks at it and she's like, why has this guy still got pics of his high school girlfriend? Or maybe she even still thinks it is your girlfriend. Yeah. She's like, what is this guy doing? So that I started playing around with all this stuff, and eventually it was just, hey. First message just, hey. Then if they respond, if they give you the time of day to respond, they're clearly interested, So you get a response.
It's a lead.
Interest, lead, right? Next message was just, and every message had to be under 5 words if possible. Next message was just sushi sometime, because what girl says no to sushi? Ironically, my current girlfriend I've been with for 2 years. does not like sushi, but I met her in person, so whatever. But yeah, it was just, hey, she'd respond, sushi sometime. And then what I do is I just wouldn't respond until I was in the same city as them. So I had a whole system. I would save the photo of the girl, put her in a collections folder on Instagram, which most people don't know you can do. So it'd be like New York City, LA, Miami, London. And when I would get to that city, I could then message and say, what's your schedule this week? Even if it was a year later, because they said yes to sushi. At some point, they're ready to go to sushi. So, I agreed. They agreed to go to sushi. I say, okay, pick you up at 8 p.m. Friday. And that's it. And I realized that was actually really powerful, more powerful. And it's more powerful than people think, because what's happened with social media, if you're a smart guy, is the sexual marketplace has almost evened. It has, like, because before there's the metaphor or the axiom or whatever you call it. If you see a 19-year-old girl on a private jet, you're like, oh, makes sense. You see a 19-year-old guy in a private jet, you're like, holy shit, how did he get there? What did he do? Who does he know? What did he build? Like, is he a billionaire? Like, 19-year-old girl in a private jet just makes sense. And, girls are getting DM'd every day. Attractive girls are getting 5, 10, 20 blue checks. I guess blue checks you can buy now. But, it's football players, hockey players, entrepreneurs just in girls' DMs every day. Now, if you're a smart guy, you can hire a VA from the Philippines for $2 an hour, say, this is the kind of girl that I'm attracted to, and they can just send 20 DMs a day. If your Instagram's good, you get a response rate of 20, 30%, and you can just automate dating. And you are in total abundance as a guy. That was never possible before. And that's going to literally change, I think, the course of evolution of humans, Now I don't really care about that at all, because I'm very happy with my relationship, and so I don't care sharing the secrets.
Yeah, your interests have evolved, right?
Yeah.
But the principles remain the same.
Yeah. So I studied that a lot, if you can't tell. I think another little just bone for the boys watching is just never don't, unless it's your girlfriend, right? If you got a wife or a girl, you don't have to think about this stuff at all. Like, you just be yourself. You can text as much as you want, it doesn't matter. But if you're in the beginning stages and you're trying to protect your time as a guy, do not send messages longer than 5 words. Just limit that and keep it logistics focused. Are they going to go on a date with you? No? Okay, fix your Instagram. Yeah. That's all you can do. You can't send a pickup line that makes them go, oh yeah, this guy who's licking this guy's nipple is now attractive to me.
It's so obvious if you look at it, if you reverse engineer it. If I look at yours or you look at mine, you could obviously see that. But from a guy's perspective, they're in the weeds a lot, right?
Yeah.
And they're not seeing that. And that's the same with business, right? If you're running an outbound strategy, trying to get clients, and you're wondering why that is, it's happening internally, the issue. Yeah. You mentioned influence. And I've heard you say that on a few podcasts. And you mentioned Robert Cialdini influence as well in a few podcasts with Luke Alexander. I recorded with him recently. How much has that played a big impact in your, your social media, just your strategy overall?
Yeah. That's part of the 12. The Cialdini principles. So if you see a photo, and by the way, all the stuff I talk about dating applies. It's the same stuff for attracting, a high value man that you want to network with or do business with.
100%.
So if I have a photo with my friend Jordan Greenfield, who is the founder of a company called Hubi, and you see a photo with myself and Jordan, and on my left is a friend of mine, a girl named Emma McDonald, who is a female influencer model type. Okay, so you've got Arlin, who maybe you may or may not have ever heard of. You've got well-known, established female girl boss on the left. On the right, Jordan Greenfield. Okay, who's that? You click on Jordan, and he has photos with Dre London, Post Malone's manager. He has photos with David Dobrik sitting courtside. He has photos with 50 Cent. He has photos with Tom Brady, a dude with a sign. It's wait a second. So if Jordan is hanging out with those people, and those guys think Jordan's cool, then Arlin must be really cool, you know? So the social proof transfers through a photo.
I love that, man.
And then you've got, we already talked about scarcity and urgency, likability, right? And reciprocity. I mean, just the volume of content that you post on the internet is karmically related to the amount of influence that you have and the amount that your audience feels indebted to you. I learned that like doing a podcast like this is actually, it's quite literally creating money because the people consuming the content are being karmically indebted. It's like the more time someone spends watching something, the more they feel they have to give back to that cause. It's just the law of the universe.
I heard you might be familiar with a guy called Daniel Priestley. Really, really interesting entrepreneur. He put a number on it. Was like 7 hours you would need to consume before you purchase something. So that could be, a combination of clicking through your reels. It could be listening to 4 or 5 podcasts. And at that 7-hour period, someone feels like, okay, we like, no one trusts this person enough. I'm ready to whip out my credit card.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I tell people that's the number one thing. It's like, if you're trying to get into personal brand, like you better up the hours you're putting out.
Yeah.
And it has to be quality too.
Yeah.
And that takes time to get both of those dialed in.
How do you build that influence? So as someone who is young, like a lot of people that listen to my content might be like first time entrepreneur or not even entrepreneur, probably similar to yourself. How do you build that influence going from zero?
Yeah, I mean, it's Gary V 101. It's just document. Don't try to teach a lot of stuff. Just show what you're doing. And put your own twist on it. And that's really it. I do want to go back to the story of how we got to why I'm a dumbass fruity travel hoe, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so which I am, and I love Olivia. Okay, so
we've established that.
Yeah, it cannot be said enough, Darren. Okay, so okay. Yeah, so Instagram for dating, Instagram for networking, and then I built this course around it. And I created like 7 iterations. I had hundreds of people go through the course to like fix their Instagram. The course is called Tribe Accelerator. And I mean, we had 500 people go through the course and like fix their Instagram and use it for dating and use it for networking. And as I was building that, I started to build my team because I was like, I have this incredible product. And the product itself is like, it's incredible. It's like, if anyone watching this knows Sam Ovens, you know Sam Ovens? Yeah, did you ever buy consulting?
I didn't buy it, but I've heard everyone reference it.
Yeah, so I mean, it was like the most impressive online course anyone's ever built. So what I did is I locked myself in Boston in winter in Boston for like 3 months, and I built the Tribe Accelerator course every day. That's all I did. And so it's like the same quality as that, if not better. I probably can't say it's better than Sam Ovens.
On a content level, yeah, on production.
Content level is on par. Yeah, like hours and hours of content. Very entertaining. The worksheets, like everything, and yeah, people go through that, and it changes their life, and not just their Instagram, because it teaches like social dynamics and influence 100%. And persuasion and everything, and how to throw an event, and how to plan a trip, and how to At one point, I was living in a house in the Hollywood Hills, and like managing that whole situation and attracting people to your events and venues and etc. And so I built that, and I was like expanding the team, and I hired this girl who helped my friend Felix, who would be a great podcast for you, by the way, Felix Hutenbach. He founded a company called Same Day Health,
cool.
Which and I've known Felix for about 5 years. And Same Day was like one of the early COVID testing companies in LA. And they were doing millions and millions of dollars in revenue within like 6 months, 1,000 employees. And I was there as he was building the whole company from like 10 employees to 1,000 because it was in Venice Beach. And I became good friends with his COO. And I hired her 2.5 years later after pandemic stuff was over. She had left the company. I hired her to help me build my team. And so we started building like these insane systems Like the same systems they had to go 0 to 1,000 employees in 6 months. I was building in mine. I was getting ready for like massive scale. And so here's like a, top level COO helping me out with this product that's like very, very top tier. I had a really great team. I had, as I mentioned, the video editors. I had the videographer, the sales team, 4, 5, 6 guys on the sales team. I had coaches that were like doing the coaching calls and onboarding calls and like checking in on people, every single week as they went through the course. And I was building like a really, really solid business. And then ChatGPT came out. And this was earlier this year, of course. Or it had been out, but ChatGPT 3. Yeah. And it blew up and it went viral. And it was like 1 million users in a day or something like that. And I started playing around with it. And, if people couldn't pick up by now, I'm definitely an early adopter of things, from like, YouTube in 2016 when no one was really doing influence, like TikTok didn't exist back then, right? So ChatGPT comes out, I'm like, okay, I'm going to hop on this. And as like a entrepreneur, how can I leverage this? And I had a copywriter who was doing a great job. But the more I played around with ChatGPT, I was like, I don't really need the copywriter. Like I can train this AI to sound like me, to write like me, to repurpose old things I've written in like a different way. And I tested it out and it was just as effective, if not a little bit more, because it doesn't cost anything, And the
time, right? You save.
Yeah.
What is that? Like trifecta. It's like time, fucking speed, and like quality.
Yeah.
But you've been able to like solve all those 3 different parameters, but usually you fall down on them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you were to outsource it to like, I don't know, the Philippines, you're not going to get the quality.
Yeah. Not only that, but like the time just managing someone.
People.
Yeah. And dealing with their emotions and stuff. Like, actually at the time my copywriter was going through some shit. Like he was going through a breakup. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry, but I don't care. I do care, but the computer doesn't have a breakup. So, I'm going to use that. So I started using that. That was like the first thing. And then I also had the idea, I could probably train this AI thing somehow if I got the API access. I could train it on all the podcasts I've done, all the Tribe Accelerator content, all the YouTube videos I've ever done, and it would just be a replica of me. And I didn't figure that out for months. But then mid-July or so this year, I found a kid, 22-year-old kid, and I had tested a lot of different devs. It was just hard to find a really smart, good dev who could see what I was trying to do. I found this 22-year-old kid who was a NYU Stern recent grad, and he taught himself to program like 6 months ago. And he was like, yeah, I can do it. I was like, all right, show me what you can do. And he built this WhatsApp tool, and I can actually put this into the mic, that was as Arlin AI. And, by the time this podcast is out, maybe this isn't quite as impressive. I still think it's pretty impressive. But he built Arlin AI, which, let's say, you wanted to ask me, if you're a customer of Tribe Accelerator, how could I throw a party in LA with Diplo as the DJ last minute? That's the question you want to ask. And then Arlin AI responds immediately.
That sounds like quite the challenge, Arlin. Given your past experiences, here's a quick plan. First, reach Diplo and negotiate a deal that benefits both parties. Keep in mind, you should be getting value from the party as well.
What the fuck, man?
Yeah, right. So, it's like WhatsApp.
And that's scraping all of your old previous content. And
it's exclusively referring to what I've said. And it responds with a text and a voice note. And then you can ask it questions more about that. And then I was like, how far can I take this? And Alex Hormozy had just put out $100 million leads. Every entrepreneur was reading it. I read it. He put some like sales training scripts in there for outbound sales and for inbound sales. Mm-hmm. And I trained the model on the sales scripts by Alex Hormozy, which is like probably the best sales conversational data that exists. Mm-hmm. And now my AI is trained on my content and it's trained on Alex Hormozy's sales scripts. So, I was going to release it as a low ticket subscription. 50 bucks a month, and you pay for more credits the more you message. And it's intelligently trained to sell the customers Tribe Accelerator or my more higher ticket offers.
And that's Maxi.
No, that was Arlin. Oh, the higher ticket offer?
Yeah.
Oh, no, the higher ticket offer was, Maxi's a low ticket. Maxi's 50 bucks a month. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can talk about that in a bit.
Because you're integrating AI into that as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the higher ticket was, at the time I was running like a $50,000 one-on-one offer.
50K?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, and I have 7 clients for that, yeah.
So talk me through that, because I think that's very interesting, even the price point. What was the idea? Was the fact that you wanted to do something so high ticket that you'd exclude like 99.9% of people?
Yeah.
And then you're just attracting the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it might sound crazy to some people listening, but, you know, I think Sam Oven's mastermind was like the first really high ticket thing on the market. It was like 30, 40 grand for a mastermind group, not even one-on-one.
You were familiar with Chris Do? You know, Chris Do, the artist. He's an artist, like entrepreneur. He was the artist behind Justin Timberlake for a lot of his work. He's a really cool company called The Future now, and they had a creative agency and everything. But he's very close to Sam Ovens. And when I interviewed Chris, he said that they were all sitting around a table. It's like Cody Sanchez, Alex Ramosi, Chris Do, Neil Patel, and Sam like looked at him and was like, "You should run a mastermind." And he's like, "Don't really know. Should I do it?" He was like, "You should set it as 100K."
Yeah.
And twice a year, or once a year, you show up and then you do a quarterly call, and you don't do any prep for the quarterly call.
Yeah.
You just get on the call, and the people, like 7 or 8 people who've paid 100K, they ask you questions.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to derail the conversation, but I thought that's the same philosophy.
Yeah. It was just that. It was like, at a certain point, I just realized, like, hey, I've been doing this social media thing for a long, long time. I've met pretty much everyone in the space that has a very high level brand. I know a lot, you know, that a lot of people just don't know. And it's like a surgeon, you know, it's like the surgeon's been doing the stuff for years. You want the best surgeon possible to tell you what to do. And, you know, with whatever problem you have. But like, I was meeting these business owners who are making like $500,000, $1 million to $100 million a year, who want to be on social media and they aren't. And they're like, 50K to have Arlin, who's been doing this for 8 years, tell me what to do. Sure. Easy.
100%.
No brainer.
That's awesome.
Wire money sent. You know, here you go. Like,
fuck, man. And what did that entail?
Basically like an onboarding call where I gathered their goals. I'd just go back and make them a plan about what I think they should do. I would build out the brand for them. So talk about like the building of a brand like Christianity. I would like build that out for them. And then I would help them because I have all these people who follow me who are short form editors, videographers. I would help them build the team for it too. So it was a bit of a service and a one-on-one, and then just texting here and there.
Of course, yeah.
Let's
go back to the AI part. So you fire down your team, you brought down pretty much to zero. So what's your perspective?
Well, yeah, I got to break that part down.
Yeah, so let's walk through that.
So I had the AI Arlin bot happening. And at that point, I was like, this is getting crazy. And I also understand that technology is getting better, faster. And like the breakthroughs are going to happen. Like the breakthrough that we had for ChatGPT, that boom, is just going to start happening like more. Like it's going to be like every 6 months, there's going to be a new boom where we're like, oh my God, that's like earth shattering.
Yeah.
You know?
Like 4.5, basically.
Yeah. And then that's going to happen every 3 months. And then it's going to happen every 1 month. And then it's going to happen and then every day you're just going to wake up and be like, oh my God, this is totally unrecognizable. So I just saw where that was going. And I started to ask my departments on my team meetings weekly, you know, what's the latest in AI? Like I wanted them to individually come, you know, everyone on my team come to our weekly meetings and say, hey, here's what I found. And my short form guys came to me one week and they were like, hey, we found this tool called Opus Pro. You can just upload your podcast link into the terminal and then it will automatically find the viral moments based on the data it has from clips going viral. It will edit the short form clip into the vertical format. It will caption it for you according to your branding, and then it'll post it. And I was sitting there looking at my 4 video editors, like, that's your job. Like, you just described your job. I was like, oh my God. And I didn't like fire everybody immediately, but I was like, holy shit. Like, that literally is like, you just described what your job is to me. And so then, so there was sales, Alex Ramosi, Arlin AI, customer fulfillment, Arlin AI responds instantaneously 24/7, never gets tired, can respond to multiple people at once. The short form video editor and the copywriter, right? So like all these positions I'm just seeing, they're like falling down, you know? And then I came to New York and I met up with a guy named Nick Kozmin, who he's been in the space for about 12, 13 years. And he studied like directly kind of under Sam. And he's made like $20, $25 million online. Not necessarily online. He sold a growth package to tech startups in Silicon Valley.
Sick.
And like he started with fintech companies and he found like a growth hack and he sold like a $15,000 package to like 2,000 companies.
Fucking hell.
So he made like 20 million plus. And so he really knows what he's doing. And so he had a new offer that was like info product. And I had done a podcast with him earlier in the year and we were kind of friends. And I introduced him to some friends in New York. And I was like, hey, I'm coming to New York. And he was like, cool, like we can meet up. So we met up and some very funny things happened. Like basically, we were out at dinner. And so the night before we went out to a club and Nick doesn't really drink or party or anything, but he spent 10 grand on bottles. And my friend Ron was there who like goes out in New York all the time. Like he's kind of a promoter sort of. Very well connected, like goes out all the time. And he meets Nick and Nick's like this quiet, like it's kind of like Sam a little bit, like a little bit introverted, and he just spends 10 grand. Like imagine Sam Ovens in a club spending 10 grand. Like it was kind of like that.
Yeah.
And, 10 grand is not that much, right? Like I've seen, Iman spend 25 grand on a Tuesday with 3 people at the table for no reason. But like, Nick spends 10 grand. It's not nothing. And then he doesn't drink anything. And then he doesn't say much. And then the next night we're having dinner. And we're sitting there at dinner, myself, Ron, and Nick. And Ron is like, so he's not in the social media world really. Like he does like real estate and some other stuff, like art dealing and stuff. He's like, so he's trying to wrap his head around like what I do even, but what Nick does. He's like, so Nick, like, what do you do? And Nick's just like, I'm just a dumbass fruity travel hoe. And we're just sitting. And as soon as he said it, I was like, you know what? Like, me too. And Ron is like, I don't get it. And Nick and I just started bursting in laughter. Like wait, we are, that's literally what we are. We are dumbass fruity travel hoes. We travel around. We post on Instagram. And money just shows up. That's like, we are sort of like male, like OnlyFans models. But we aren't selling like nudie pictures.
Not selling ass.
We're selling like info products, wisdom, right? Experience. And, I realized like I've been traveling the last like 2 years. I pretty much, I have my YouTube, but the YouTube, like at this point, Instagram was like the main moneymaker for the business. And I'm making like, like for some reason, I'm making like $100,000 plus a month just from posting on Instagram. Like, and I'm like, I'm just a dumbass travel hoe. That's what I am. And then we started thinking more about like, why are we traveling? And there's more, there's more in-depth stuff to it, but it's like, there's so many benefits to traveling, like you can, when you travel, and the audio viewers are not really understanding what's happening. You got to go to Darren's YouTube to watch. When you travel, you get to stay in a hotel, right? Because we realize, because for me, in 2021, I had an apartment. And I started traveling because I'm like getting invited on all these trips because I'm hot. And I'm still paying for this apartment. Like, not to mention, in an apartment, you have to like take care of it.
Yeah.
And you have to like you could get cleaners, but then you have like cleaners in your apartment, you know? And I don't know, like when you're in a hotel, you can, like, I had a salad one day. First of all, I pick up the phone in the hotel room and I call some girl and I'm like, hey, can you bring me a salad? And she's like, yeah. And then she just brings it to me in like 10 minutes. But I was eating the salad and then I dropped it. And I dropped it on a white rug, like a fur, white, nice, like probably Restoration Hardware. And I dropped it. And then I was like about to pick it up because in my apartment, I would have had to pick it up. But then I just like left. And when I got back, it was clean. I don't know why, but yeah. So I realized that like living in hotels is just a lot more convenient. There's always a gym and you can always be sexy in the gym and like post mirror selfies. And yeah, okay, so I'll explain that a little more. Okay. So basically,
it's a lifestyle though, right?
It's a lifestyle. So quite like if you are traveling, you get some of the best information when you're traveling in person. And you meet people who know stuff that they aren't posting on the internet yet. Like the internet's late because it's not getting the fastest, most up-to-date information. And the information is changing so fast with AI that like you need if you want to have an advantage, it's good to have like the most up-to-date info. With the hotels, right? If you're traveling, you know, literally sometimes, and there's ways to hack hotels too, to like pay less than an apartment. But you've got room service, food delivered to your door immediately, all the time, so you never have to worry about cooking, and that takes time. You've got like, you know, turn down service. So like if you drop a salad or if you could poop on the floor, someone will clean it up for you. You know, like, and it's clean all the time, always organized. And you can network and meet like I literally met Alex Becker in the hotel. He was just sitting in the hotel in New York, like it just getting breakfast. And I was like, I've watched Alex Becker for like years. I've learned so much from that guy. He's just sitting in the hotel. If you live in a nice apartment building, of course, there's people you can network with, but New York City, one hotel, you know, the networking is crazy. And then you've got like the exercise, right? So Nick's original thing was 60 minutes of cardio a day, which the purpose of that is essentially to get a sweat in and to just move. As an entrepreneur, you're taking on a lot of stress. If you want to get to, according to Nick, you know, if you want to get to like 20 million, you want to make $20 million, you're going to be working a lot. And so you need to take care of your body.
100%.
Right? As a fruity travel hoe, like you don't really have to think about all this stuff, you know, whatever. You just focus on being sexy, right? And like, AKA being healthy. And if you're healthy, you can work longer hours. On top of that, the reason that being sexy is good is because you are the brand, right? Like the better you look, if you have a six-pack, if you have 7% body fat, you know, people pay attention more. The algorithm, for some reason, seems to be pushing people in good shape. You know, I could talk about this for about 12 hours.
100%.
The depth of this, I'm just giving you the surface layer. And then the last thing is like, when you're in good shape and you optimize sleep, and you show up to record content on a podcast, the energy that you're feeling is going into the universe, right? Like it's not the universe, it's going into the internet. And the energy that I'm presenting in this very moment on this clip, the reason I have the energy to feel good and to project that outward is because I take really good care of my health. And so if you want to be successful on social media, you have to be sexy. Yeah, I think that's enough of an explanation there. You know, I listen to Olivia genuinely because she's the best. and I love her.
It's interesting, right? Because a lot of the factors to be successful online, like having that holistic like view of your health, your sleep, and everything, is almost at odds with what we've been told, you know, to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And especially we discussed earlier, like a place like New York City, people like don't sleep, they're up all night, they're poor diet, they're out drinking, putting coke up their nose 24/7. Not 24/7, but they're out a lot, right? Whereas someone like yourself, who's kind of paved that way, you focus on these factors outside, and that's basically what's put you in this kind of category of one. That's a fantastic book as well, right? And you've basically created a category of one for yourself.
Yeah.
Which is quite unique, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back to even Sam Muffins and people like that, their foundations have put them into those categories, and that's how they end up being on their own. So, talk about this death thing, right? Because it's again, it goes back to your storytelling and how you convey the message. Where did it come from? Like, what is it?
Well, I fired everybody, and I realized I was like making all this money, and I was like, so like everyone thinks that like having so much money is good, but it's really not, you know? And I went to the Olivia Rodrigo concert the other night with my girlfriend. She got me tickets for my birthday. And dude, it's so hard to say in character sometimes.
Oh my God.
She got, and it was fun. And I had a great time, and she's a great performer. But then I realized, like, I need to be in debt.
Why?
I just want to be in debt. I don't want to make money anymore. I want to be in debt.
Okay, so what are you doing as a result?
I don't know. I need help.
Okay, tell me, if you have to go into more detail, man. You have to go into more detail on this.
I woke up today very, very sad because my friend, entrepreneur guy, is in way more debt than me.
And
way more.
And he's in debt because of?
He has 99 million debt. I only have like 100,000 debt. I want more debt. And
where does this come from? That's the question. That's the idea with this.
Okay. All right. So, in 2019, I hit probably like the lowest rock bottom that I've been in. I had just gotten out of a pretty toxic relationship. The girl cheated on me. It was public. It was on YouTube. Like everyone who followed me knew who the girl was. She was in all my videos. She cheated on me with a celebrity. The way I found out was through one of my followers sending me a photo of her with some dude. The dude had like 25 million followers. It was all on like TMZ and like Hollywood Fix, like the paparazzi channels. And the day she cheated on me with this guy, like it was at Coachella, she archived or deleted all the pictures she had with me because we've been dating for like 9 months or something. And she posted a Getty Images paparazzi photo with the celebrity, like the next day that she was with the guy. And so I was like down bad, really bad. She was with the guy for like a week. I was super brutally embarrassed, of course, because that's like the most embarrassing thing that can happen to you as a guy. And I ended up getting back with her after that. I was so down. And I started, I stopped posting. I stopped posting YouTube videos. I stopped posting on Instagram. I stopped making money. And I was just like, at the time, it was in Australia in the winter time with this girl. And I was running out of money. And like, I'm for some reason still in this relationship. I was just so down. Like, I was just like apathetically depressed. And it was weird because like, you know, this is after my whole like, you know, personal development thing. I'm like, I'm not supposed to be this guy. Like, what is happening? But I was stuck. And that was the darkest moment of my life. You know, I was, my own parents were like about to disown me, you know, and my friends were like, dude, what are you doing? I had no respect from anybody. And eventually I was able to get out of the relationship, find myself, you know, hadn't posted on YouTube in like 8 months, hadn't made money in like, you know, 6 to 7 months. I hadn't talked to a lot of friends, and I had like 10 grand left in the bank and maybe like a credit card with like $5,700 on it. And so I had a couple friends that I knew like from when I was a kid, and they were in this luxury apartment building in Boston, and they were paying like $6 grand a month in rent. And they had, I was like, I just need to get in there because I know if I'm like close to them that I'll be able to just have a little connection with people and build myself back up. And so I found a studio apartment in that building for like $4 grand a month, which, you know, is like 700 square feet, not much. And $4 grand a month now is like not that much money. But then, you know, I only had 10 grand cash and $5,700 a month on a credit card.
It's 2 months.
Yeah. Not to mention food and just going out and stuff. And I hadn't posted on it. I didn't have any way of making money, really. I had the YouTube audience, but I was like, I feel ashamed to even post. And because literally 160,000 followers knew that I had gotten cheated on and gotten back with the girl. I'm like, what am I going to say, you know? So I somehow got the apartment, and it lit a fire under my ass, and I like had to make the money, you know? And so I worked my ass off, and like a few months later, I had the biggest drop for the clothing brand that I ever had. And I made like 50 grand in like the weekend, the Black Friday weekend. And it was probably closer to like $25,000 in profit because it was clothing. But that was like, I was back, you know?
Yeah.
And I also had, at the time, I bought like an online program. It was called Wake Up Wealthy by Brody Kern, who'd also be a great podcast. And that was $5,000, which at the time, you know, I didn't have that money, but all this like investing in myself helped me ignite this pain as like fuel and put pressure on me to grow. Then in 2021, about a year after that, a year and a half after, I invested in a business coach that was actually $50,000 one-on-one for a year, and then $15,000 a month after that. And then I also got a house in the Hollywood Hills that was $15,000 a month. And so I had an overhead of $30,000 a month I had to make. If I didn't make that, I would be in debt. You know, I mean, I was already in debt, right? But like, because like every month the overhead is 30.
It's accountability you're putting on yourself.
Yeah, and so I had accountability, and I realized in the last like year I'd sort of hit like a ceiling, and so with debt, right? Like, and when I talk about debt, I mean like getting essentially business credit, or in just buying something that puts you in more debt. You know, the more it's okay. If you knew you had like 3 months to live, how motivated would you be to do everything you possibly could to have your impact on the world? Or if you knew like a loved one was about to die unless you made $100,000 in the next 10 days and to pay for their treatment or whatever, you'd be able to make the money. But we can't manufacture that, right? But with debt, you actually can. You know, you can, if you get, you know, a business credit card, you can get $100,000 to $500,000 in, you know, essentially 0% interest business credit. And you have the power to invest in assets or in education more so. Now, I'm doing that myself. I'm looking at like getting some properties and a house soon. But I'm also like my friend, one of the parts of my business model is I do like affiliate stuff. So my friend has a program called Funding Secrets, and I'm doing an affiliate offer where we're splitting a percentage of what my followers make or what my followers get funded. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, as a one-person business now, like being able to make 100 to 300 grand in a month, one person, my only expenses are hotels, nice dinner, and Chanel bags for my girlfriend.
The fun shit.
Like, it's like, you know, and I just think that like as an entrepreneur, you have to be looking at how do you subtract, right? And I also think that, and this is, I could kind of end on this note. I think this is good. I just went on a trip with my dad to Phoenix, Arizona. I was telling you at the beginning, or Tucson, Arizona, out in the middle of nowhere on essentially like a desert art farm. The Airbnb owner is an artist and philosopher. And I was not expecting this at all. But like we got to his place. It's like this tiny little like capsule in the middle of the desert, middle of nowhere. The artist, he's a French guy, Olivier Dubois Chelier is his name. And he invited us to go see one of his art exhibitions, which is even more in the desert. He's like, oh yeah, we have to drive about 40 minutes. It's on a dirt road. You know, it's not like I only show people who want to see it. If you want to see it, great. If not, I don't care. Like he's like so French, and he's so like anarchist and like reductionist. And you know, my dad's a photographer. I'm super into art. I'm like, yeah, we want to see it. So we get in his old pickup truck and we drive like 40 minutes on the bumpiest dirt road you can imagine up a mountain. And we hike then another like 30 minutes up the mountain to see this piece of art that he made. And it was incredible. And I don't want to talk about it too much because I think like if people really want to see it, you can go on Airbnb and you can find the time capsule Airbnb in Arizona. It's like a purple and orange building in the desert. It's like $70 a night. And you can go see it with him. But one thing he was telling me is like he left the art world. Like he used to be like in New York City playing the gallery game. Like he had, you know, art collectors. And he was like, you know, people nowadays are making art for business, right? Like they're trying to make art that's going to sell. And that kind of loses a lot of the soul of the art. And they're trying to really keep to like these strict guidelines of what will make the art valuable. And he's like, you know, I'm trying to keep the art as pure as possible. And he said there's this kind of trend in like business and marketing, this idea that like, you know, less is more, right? And that's something that I've always talked about even on podcasts. Like, my favorite book is the 80-20 principle. And he pointed out to me that less is more is good, but it's still a capitalist idea because you're trying to get more, right? He's like, no, less is less and less is good. And so I think as we move forward with like AI and with you know, the rate at which technology is improving, I think a trend and what feels right to me at least is this idea that like less, you know, the less stuff you focus on, you may even actually make a little less money, right? Like you might downsize your business a little bit, but maybe you get more profit. But I think what's going to happen is that the robots are going to take a lot of the human jobs, and humans will be more so forced into like their soul's mission of creation and less focused on their KPIs. And so, yeah, I found that experience, and that was only a few days ago. I was in the desert there. Super interesting. This idea that less is less, not more, and less is good.
We'll finish up on that note, man. But I think what's awesome about that is the fact that usually with more comes like more problems, right? You know, to that degree. And for you, someone who's making 100K, even more, you don't really need to be making millions a month.
No,
right?
No, you don't.
And it's that inflection point whereby you go past the threshold of enjoyment, passion, like purpose, profit. You're just going way past those metrics. And you're someone like who's so creative, and your mind is even so creative. And I would even hate to see that leave you to have a $100 million company like your mate.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And I mean, I still think, obviously, you know, there's one of my favorite documentaries I would recommend is for the art and business world is called The Lost Leonardo. And it's about a Da Vinci painting. He only made 4 paintings in his life, but they supposedly found a 15th painting called the Salvator Mundi. This is in like 2011. They like found it at an art auction. It was just, for some reason, it was in New Orleans, in the United States, and it sold at another auction. They bought it for like $1,500, sold it at the next auction, or they sold it to a Russian oligarch for like, they sold it to a Russian oligarch's Swedish art dealer for 87 million, who flipped it to the oligarch for 127 million, who then found out it was flipped and was super pissed off at his dealer and like attacked him. And then it went to Christie's art auction in New York and sold for $400 million, $450 million to MBJ, the sheikh, the Saudi prince. And that's just a movie about like the interplay between art and business. So like my point of bringing that up is like, I think like as an artist, you know, and even as an entrepreneur, I think you can get to millions and millions a month, but don't let that distract you from like, my message would be, don't let the desire for like money and more money and getting to the next level and $100 million leads and million a month, like don't let that distract you from like staying true to the core of your, like holding your own paintbrush,
I love that, man. Honestly, a massive thank you. I really appreciate it, bro.
Of course.
And I feel like we should do this again in the future.
Would love
many different angles. We can go and hopefully it was a different conversation for you as well.
Yeah, hopefully I'm still an Olivia fan when I get back.
Man, of course. Or else it's going to be a new persona. But thank you so much, bro. I appreciate it.